Those higher prices mean you need to earn over $100,000 in 34 out of the 50 largest metro markets to buy the typical home for sale.
I would say that buying a home right now is more difficult, it's more unaffordable compared to 4 years ago.
San Jose, you've got to make $361,000. LA, it's almost $300,000. San Diego, almost $260,000.
In 4 years, home prices have shot up by 40%, interest rates have gone up, and wages have not kept up.
This is not good. It's not good for me. It's not good for you. And it certainly isn't good for Joe Biden, who of course is seeking re-election and is getting blamed for inflation in every sector of the economy where we're experiencing inflation, including in the area of housing. Now, let's take a look at the data so you get a sense of what I'm talking about. You got a little taste with that video that we just showed you, but the S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller US National Home Price Index, which is a great concise name for any type of analysis, but it's a measure of home prices across the country. It jumped 6.5% in March from a year earlier to a record high. It's the sixth time the index has reached a new record high over the past year. So the unaffordability issue is a real problem, and it's been a problem. This is not new. I'm gonna get to how the Biden administration is responding to it in just a moment, but I'm gonna give you a little spoiler. It ain't good and it ain't a real solution. Now, last month was a doozy to say the least, breaking previous records. April ranked among the 6 least affordable months for buying a home in the last 38 years, according to the Mortgage Technology Division of Intercontinental Exchange, also known as ICE, but not that ICE, it's the housing ICE. It's an information clearinghouse, including for mortgage listings. And this is translating to a lot of pissed off Americans, and understandably so. Look, owning a home used to be the main avenue in which ordinary, hardworking Americans were able to build wealth. They would build equity on their homes. That equity could then be used to make another purchase, maybe sell the house, buy a bigger house if you need to, if you're building a family. That's out of sight, out of mind, unreachable for most Americans now, something that they're unable to obtain because of the lack of inventory, the high demand of housing. And so supply demand, it makes all the sense in the world. If there's high demand, low supply, that is going to lead to skyrocketing housing prices. And then you add higher interest rates to the mix and you've got a nightmare.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
Housing, by the way, was the second most common response behind inflation in a recent Gallup poll that asked Americans to name the top financial concerns for their families. More mentioned housing than at any time since Gallup started asking the open-ended questions in 2005. So here's a map that shows where renters, so that's buying houses, right? But this also impacts renters, because if you can't afford a house, you're gonna wanna rent. And if there's increased demand for renting an apartment or renting a unit, there's still low supply of rental units. And so you see just how many states are impacted by this, with Americans spending more than 30% of their income on housing. So if you look at this map of the US, basically any area that's colored in is where Americans are paying at least 30% or more of their income. But the darker the color, the more they're spending on housing. A higher percentage of their income goes toward housing. So Americans are actually paying more than 60% of their income on housing in like the dark purple areas. And you can see that in Texas. You can also see that in Florida, South Florida specifically. And you can probably tell because we're guessing that most viewers are dealing with the brutal housing costs as well. This is creating a massive problem for Joe Biden. There's a lot of frustration. And I want to be fair to Biden and note that it's not just a federal issue. certainly there could be legislation or even executive action on a federal level to alleviate some of the pain that Americans are dealing with housing, essentially providing incentives to increase supply, increase the construction of housing units. But a lot of the policy is decided on a local level. In California, it is notoriously difficult to build housing. And what the so-called NIMBYs, or not in my backyard individuals, do is they cite environmental concerns in order to halt construction of new housing. And look, if you own a home, not all homeowners fall in this category, but a lot unfortunately do, because again, it's seen as an avenue in which people build wealth. If you already own a home, you love that you're building equity on that house or that condo or townhouse, wherever, if any property that you purchase to live in. That increased equity means that you're building wealth and you don't want to let that go. And so you have a lot of property owners who fight against building more housing because more supply might mean, at least temporarily, the value of their homes might go down a little. But I think that's worth it, no? I think that's worth it. I think the value of your property going down temporarily, it'll go back up. Housing always goes up. Look at the trends over many, many decades. I would venture to say that it's far better to live in a community where everyone is sheltered, everyone is housed, as opposed to like hoarding what little housing remains for those who were either able to purchase it when housing was affordable or are wealthy enough to purchase it now. Doing that and allowing for this very severe homeless problem in the country to continue to expand, to continue to get worse, doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what kind of life is that? Like, do people enjoy living in communities where they literally have homeless encampments outside of their front door? That's no way to live, okay? Like, take 50% of the value of my home away from me. I don't care. If everyone's housed, I'm gonna be a happier person. Okay, but anyway, let me continue and give you more details about what the reporting entails. So a recent Washington Post article that analyzed Biden's problem with housing costs actually focused on one battleground state in particular, and that battleground state is Nevada, which Biden did win in 2020. Biden won the silver state by 2.4 percentage points in 2020, but is currently trailing Trump in almost every public poll conducted there. According to the National Low Income Housing Coalition, there are only 17 affordable and available rental homes for every 100 extremely low income renter households in Nevada. And a University of Nevada at Las Vegas study found that 7 of the 10 most common jobs in Las Vegas don't even pay enough to afford a studio apartment, guys. This is no way to live. Dr. Carter, who's a 26-year-old resident, I'm sorry, not doctor, that'd be great. D. Carter, who's a 26-year-old resident of Las Vegas, is actually paying 50% of her income on rent. And she said this to the Washington Post: given that the last few options haven't been that great and nobody really cares about the younger community and generations moving forward, I don't really know if me voting is going to make a difference. So the neglect that Americans have been dealing with from our federal government, and yes, in some cases from local government as well, is actually posing a threat to democracy. Because when you have an electorate that increasingly believes that voting doesn't matter, that nothing's gonna change, that their participation in our democratic process is useless and worthless, yeah, that is a threat to democracy. So placing all the blame on Trump, and I understand why people do that, I think kind of misses the forest for the trees, because I think Trump is a symptom of something much bigger that has been neglected by policymakers and our elected leaders for far too long. And I think the biggest mistakes in regard to housing policy were made under the Obama administration. He did not react or respond to the mass foreclosures that Americans were being, that were the majority of Americans who faced those foreclosures were not made whole, even after it was shown that they were victimized by predatory lending, in some cases by fraud. And so I don't think that the Obama administration responded well to the housing crash. And I think that the policies that we saw from the Obama administration have further exacerbated the housing problem for ordinary working Americans. And so finally, let's get to Biden's plan. So Biden likes to throw ideas out there and then he never fights for them. He did that with immigration policy, and he's certainly doing that with housing policy as well. Again, it's not entirely up to Biden. State and local policy plays a big role in the housing crisis as well. So I want to be clear about that. But remember, at the heart of this problem is the low supply of housing, meaning we need to build more housing. But what Biden wants to do is essentially make like more money or more tax deductions available to first-time homeowners. Yeah, the tax deductions don't really work if you're unable to purchase the home because it's unaffordable. And besides which, even if the federal government just sent a check to ordinary people and said, here's $5,000. He's not proposing this, by the way. But let's say they just give you money and say, you can use this money toward a down payment for a home. How is that going to help a terrible housing market when there is still not enough supply? All it's going to do is further increase the cost of buying a home. So really, again, at the heart of this problem is the fact that we're not building enough housing, and we need to find real solutions for that. And the incentives need to go toward states and municipalities that are making a real effort to build additional housing to alleviate the homeless crisis and alleviate the unaffordability crisis that people are basically dealing with in this housing market. Anyway, so do I think Biden's going to do anything about that? No, I don't. I think that Biden's solutions lack imagination, and besides which, this needs to be an effort by all levers of power. Federal, state, local, and I don't see much of a will there. I haven't seen much of a will in banning foreign investors from buying up residential real estate without having any intention of moving to the United States or living in those homes. I've seen absolutely no effort to ban private equity firms from literally buying up entire neighborhoods of homes. None of that stuff has been addressed. And I think that's really where the problem lies. There needs to be more housing built. There needs to be more restrictions on individuals who use housing for money laundering purposes or to park their money in when they have no interest in even living in the United States. Those are some actual solutions, but those are not the solutions that anyone in government seems to be looking at.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.